Me too.
Good evening. It is 6 o'clock, Thursday, March 16th. Our regular meeting from Tuesday was postponed to today due to the storm. I'll call the meeting to order. If you'll all rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, okay, we're going to start with financial items. We have a ARPA committee recommendation. The AED batteries and pads in the municipal buildings are due for replacement. The estimated cost is $296. And the request is that we pay for that out of ARPA money, and it is an appropriate expenditure. So I'll entertain a motion to approve and pay for that.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Nope.
No.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Old business, new business. All right, hearing, opt out or vote by mail. Go ahead.
I'm gonna actually stand up for this one. I am Tara Hayes, your town clerk, and I'm here tonight to ask the select board to opt out of early vote by mail for the 2023 municipal elections. I want to start by saying I've only gotten 2 questions directed to me, and I just got those this morning on this topic, and I have not received any applications. If people had come to me, I could have explained, and I hope that the 2 people that did contact me, I hope I explained everything fully. I didn't get a response, so I'm assuming. Early vote by mail was instituted in 2020 due to the pandemic. The state mailed out postcards to every voter in the registry, dead, alive, active, inactive, didn't matter. The voter needed to complete and return the postcard to the local elections office, and it gave the voter the ability to vote by mail with no reason. What makes it different from absentee vote by mail is that absentee has been around for many years, and it will continue to be offered. To vote absentee vote by mail, a voter must, under the pains and penalties of perjury, attest that they will be unable to go to the polls on election day for one of 3 reasons: a religious exemption, unable to go to the polls due to a disability, whatever the disability may be, or they're out of town on election day due to work, travel, vacation, whatever. It's not my intent or the Board of Registrar's intent to disenfranchise anybody from voting. The intent is to stop the early vote by mail applications, to save the town money, and to also ensure that every vote is received and counted. And the best way to do that is at the polls, absentee by mail, or early voting, which will also be offered in the office during regular business hours. I don't know if anyone has any questions, but I'm here.
So what's the difference exactly between the absentee and the vote by mail?
Absentee, you have to fit one of the 3 reasons. Otherwise, there is no difference. Absentee, from talking to Sheila, for anyone who doesn't know my predecessor, town elections at most got 10 absentee vote by mail applications for an election. There's a greater ability for me to be able to follow up, which I have done.
So, and someone who votes absentee by mail, like we've always done, requests the vote.
Yep.
The ballot.
Yep.
Okay, how is that different from
Well, one thing that is
what we're
different,
trying to, what you're asking us to opt out of?
early vote by mail, because it's an off year, it's not a state election,
Mhm.
I'm not mailing out postcards to everyone to see if you wanna, I don't have to, I wouldn't incur the expense either, to see if anyone wanted to vote by mail. Absentee, the application is on the website, so if someone wanted to, they could have already done
Right,
that.
so, right, for absentee vote, how
For
is,
both,
for both?
Yeah.
So you don't have to mail anything out?
no,
So then where was the extra expense coming from?
processing and mailing the ballots to the voters.
But aren't you
No.
already doing that during the day?
Excuse me, hold on. We'll ask for questions.
I thought it was a hearing, so I thought we were allowed to ask questions.
We're in the middle of an interchange. We don't interrupt. Go ahead.
Not a-
I forgot where I was, sorry. Fog.
Okay, go ahead.
But are you already processing ballots during the day because of early voting?
No. Early voting, you come to the office,
Yes.
I check you off on the list,
Mm-hmm.
I hand you a ballot in an envelope.
But what's the difference if it's mailed to
Can I
you?
finish?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
You take the ballot, you go around the corner, you vote.
Mm-hmm.
You bring it back to me, you have filled out the top of the envelope properly, and you hand it to me.
Mhm.
You know I've got it.
Yeah.
Going by mail? Prime example. I had a husband and wife in 2020. They requested to vote by mail. Mailed them both their ballots, they got them, they voted them. They brought them to the mailbox, put them in. I got the husband's. Never got the wife's.
Okay.
10 days after the election, I got the wife's. Because I kept telling everyone, track my ballot, she knew that I didn't get her ballot,
Yeah.
so she came to the polls and voted.
My question is because of the reasoning is because of the finances, so I'm trying to understand where the extra expense and the extra time comes from. Because if you choose to vote by mail, you are, I guess, taking that own personal risk, and I would say that's on you, whether or not you want to take that risk, and that would be up to the voter. But I'm trying to understand why it's costing extra money. You know, I'm trying to understand that
Because
part.
I have to take the time to do the data entry into the voter registry system, print all the labels, stuff all the packages, bring them to the post office, trust that the post office will get it to you, and then trust that the post office will get it back to me.
Okay.
There's postage, there's time.
And that's not already like counted as your time for working? We pay extra hours for that as a town?
You don't pay extra hours for it, I just work the extra hours.
Okay,
Or I get some of my poll workers to come in and work.
okay. So I'm just wondering where the extra cost, so the extra cost is just, from the shipping labels and the mailing and stuff?
Yeah.
So we have, how many people do we have about,
For
mail-in votes? Like about how many people did we have over the last few years do mail-in votes?
the 2022 November election, actually I'll go with the 2022 September election, there was over 384 vote by mail ballots.
Wow. And do you think they otherwise would not have voted?
There
No,
were, there
I
were
don't
more.
believe that.
Well, if we're talking local election was 222 returned.
222 were
Returned, and then,
384 were mailed.
right, so that's just for local that you're talking about, and then, primary,
They went out in the same envelopes.
yeah, and there were 212 returned. But do you have to track that differently, the primary versus
I
local, if you
did
do track
in
by
the
ballot?
state system,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
They're all separate.
So when you have to have your poll workers come in, you have to pay them
Yep,
more expense if you don't have the time to do it in your regular daily duties. You have to have 2 or 3 people come in and help you.
yep.
You have to pay them.
And during the 2020, the presidential election, it was insanity. I had people there all day, working and helping with sorting and stuffing and,
And not only do you have to check the box, check the sheet, the street sheet when they take the ballot, when they come up there to vote, you have to make sure that they haven't already voted
correct.
again. So you have to do like a double or triple check.
Yep.
And that's time consuming also.
Yep.
So, and you're paying poll workers
Yep.
up there to do that, the same thing.
And the reason for the vote by mail was the pandemic.
Yeah.
Pandemic's over, according to everybody.
Yep.
Yes, Jane?
So I'm a senior citizen, and I
Mhm.
can't leave the house.
Absentee vote by mail.
Still an option, so.
Still an
so-
option.
So how would I do that? I know you probably already explained that.
The application is online.
Okay,
I can mail you one.
so I
I
could call you,
have-
I could call you and say, hey, look, can you send me,
Yes.
okay.
I have driven to people's houses to drop off their ballot because it was too close of a time between when I got the application and the election. I've dropped them off.
So that's the way it's always been, you've always been,
Yes.
okay, so what we're talking about is a policy that went into effect to
During
deal
the
with the
pandemic.
COVID. Okay, during the pandemic, to try to make it easy for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, it was worth the expense, it was worth the time.
And we get reimbursed by the state. Well, we get reimbursed as a town, but we're paying for it in our taxes.
Oh, so we.
For state and federal, just to be clear, not for
Oh.
municipal.
Oh, okay, I was saying, wait, I'm.
Yeah, we
I
don't
got
get
you.
reimbursed for municipal, and I think that's part of,
The reason why. And what is the expense, extra expense?
The personnel, the postage.
No, I mean, like, I'm sorry, like, what's the average total, like, your extra we're
Well,
spending?
it's only been 2 years.
Wow. I mean, so you don't know how much extra we spend?
In 2022, I just got back 3,800 from the state.
Right, but that was for, not for municipal, right?
No,
we haven't
that was-
had one. We haven't had a municipal-only election with
I see.
mail-in, a mail-in ballot option.
I'm
The,
just, yeah.
the municipal election we last had with a mail-in ballot option was the state
Primary in
primaries
September.
in September. So we don't really have an accurate number on what it would look like to have a
But
mail-in ballot, but
absentee vote by mail.
was low. But that's historically been low and nowhere near what mail-in ballots have been since. So to me, you know, we've seen 20 to 37% of voters who turned out to vote choose mail-in ballots instead of voting in person. So for me personally, that tells me there's a need for mail-in ballots, which, you know, versus absentee, which is more like 5%.
I mean, as I was saying, that's my feeling too, like, I mean, I definitely feel like if there's a need for it, if there's that many numbers and stuff, like, there's a need for it, and I understand the expense thing is frustrating, especially if the town's low money, but, you know, is it worth it to make sure that people have their votes and have an ability to vote and are interested in voting, you know, is it worth it to give them an option?
If they're not gonna be in town, they've got absentee vote by mail.
Or what if someone can't drive, or they're
Absentee
no.
vote by mail.
But I mean, if someone found out that you like actually ended up being in town or things changed, like couldn't you get in trouble for that?
Well, you are signing under the pains and penalties of
Yes.
perjury.
$10,000, up to $10,000 fine or up to 5 years in prison. And it is fairly limited.
Yeah,
There's-
I'm sure that there would be some flexibility in that because I'm sure that it's happened.
Yes, Brendan,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the need only seemed to arise during the pandemic and seemed to be more of a convenience. And we have to keep in mind, it's a small town, it's a part-time staff, they have a tremendous workload as it is. And, you know, I don't know how much money it's saving, but, you know, I think just, it's the same reason you don't have a cop on every corner or a fire truck at the end of every street. There's only so much resources you can provide, and just for convenience, you know, I mean, you have early voting anytime during the office hours, which are mornings and there's some evenings, and you have absentee ballot and then regular voting. And it never seemed to be an issue before. I don't know why it'd be an issue now, so
I
that's
love early
just my opinion.
Well,
And-
to that point, the numbers that you gave for 2020,
Mhm.
did it result in more voters?
It's,
Did the institution of that program result in more people voting? Or was it just the case that people took a different option? And the
Just give me a
overall
second.
average of people voting was the same?
I think we'd have to look at that as a trend and see, I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know if we have that, do we?
well, the statistics online run back to 2016, but I don't have everything. But I will say that in November 2022, we saw kind of a nosedive in voting altogether. But, and only about 53% of our voters turned out for state election. November 2020 state election, we saw 75% voter turnout, but that's with mail-in ballots. Same for November 2022. 2018 state election, we saw 59% turnout. So typically, so if we're looking at those state election numbers, those are our November elections. The 2018 is 59%, the 2020, which was the next one, is 75%. That's the first year of mail-in ballots. And then November of 2022 goes to 53% voter turnout.
But November,
Primaries run kind of the same. I mean, it's kind of the same difference.
November of 2020 was the presidential election.
Yes, yeah, and so that was huge
Yeah, there's.
It always
anyway,
is.
yeah, for sure.
And it's for the town elections this year only.
Yeah, this isn't to opt out of state or federal or anything like that.
We can't
Yeah.
until the legislature
So
decides.
what's the difference in the process between what you're asking us to opt out of and the one that they can do with absentee mail-in?
Same process.
Okay,
It would
so-
be lower numbers for the
So-
absentee, I believe. Do I know for a fact? I don't know. But I believe it would be lower numbers, more time to follow up. I was getting ballots back. There's a process. Your ballot goes into the envelope, you sign the envelope, you put the envelope in the other envelope, and you mail it back. I would get ballots back, not in the inner envelope. Rejected. Not signed. Rejected. All reasons to reject, which is why I kept saying, check track my ballot. If there was only 10 ballot applications mailed out. Hey, Kim, you forgot to sign your envelope. Do you want to come in and early vote? Do you want to make other arrangements? Things like that could happen. It is impossible to do 384 ballots if people do things wrong.
I have two more questions. One is, if we do opt out this year, is it just for 1 year?
It is only for this year.
And then my second question is, so if we're like the only town, which it's looking like, that's gonna opt out.
No, we're not.
Right.
So like how do you like combat the confusion to make sure that people are aware that they have to do absentee and stuff like instead of mail-in, and that's not an option?
What do you mean combat the confusion?
Like make sure like people know that they can't mail in ballots, and like what is the plan for I mean, do we have,
I think that everyone has posted enough stuff about this. It will be on the website, it will be on the town alert. It would be posted everywhere. Absentee vote by mail is the only option available besides early voting or voting at the polls.
Any more questions? Nobody?
I'm gonna go back to your question, because I'm not sure I heard the answer. The difference between what we're talking about opting out and the absentee is that who initiates it?
It's always initiated by the voter.
But the program that we're talking about opting out of, who initiates that process?
During the state election years,
Well, no, I don't care about that. Municipal election.
the voter would have to.
The voter would have to.
If
opt
I'm
out.
understanding the question correctly,
So they go online.
print
and
out
they-
the application.
They print it out.
Yep.
Okay, so they go online, they print it out, and then they fill it out and mail it in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if they're gonna absentee vote by mail,
Mm-hmm.
they do the same thing.
Yeah.
So how does it,
So is there a difference? Not really. But you're attesting that you can't come to the polls
For
for whatever reason.
And there's not a lot of those.
what's that?
There's just not a lot of those either, the absentee. I think it's the cost with the mailing. Now, how many people do you know the percentage of that you mailed out that actually used them? Do you know that?
What do you mean?
So like, say you mailed out 500, how many did you get back?
58.5%
That's a
for
lot.
the September
For that, I was
primary.
gonna say, but in elections past, we've seen 77% and 75% for state elections and a primary election in 2020.
But that's total number of voters.
COVID also, we don't
Yeah.
have COVID anymore.
Yeah, that was.
Everybody can go.
And is that
2020.
when that we got the cards in the mail, it wasn't like
Yes.
the state
I don't
mailed those
remember.
out?
Tara might know that. I don't.
So that's a
2020.
little difference too,
2020 and
with those
2022,
numbers.
the state mailed out the postcards.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas this, it's hard to judge those numbers because she didn't have to mail it out. Everybody got their cards.
Right, so we really, and I don't know if that would be the process for a regular municipal, where you would, you wouldn't send it out, you would just announce, you
Yeah.
need to come down and request it.
Danielle?
Are all absentee ballots approved for any reason?
Yeah.
Because I
They-
thought it's
You
not
don't
just-
put a reason on the application.
Because I thought it was disability,
It is.
out of town. So if someone is working from like 8 AM to 8 PM,
Absentee vote by mail.
because I thought it had to be approved that you could leave work, that it didn't have to.
Or early voting, they could vote,
Yeah.
well, 2
Or
weeks
vote
prior.
early.
Your employer should let you go vote.
I don't get to leave, I don't work.
as it should and could,
That's,
but.
I'm my own employer, but.
How early do you do early voting? 1
As
week, 2
long
weeks?
as I have the ballots up to 17 days before the election.
So you have 2 weeks and a little.
Yeah.
So early vote, so if you couldn't get there that day, and you're open till
Just-
8 o'clock or whatever, a couple of nights,
Mm-hmm.
it just,
I mean, I understand, it's just like, we don't always know if we're not gonna be able to get there with different work schedules and things like that, so that's why, if you get the mail in, you can just automatically just know, okay, I'm gonna vote and do it this way, that's my confusion.
You're signing under the pains and penalties of perjury on an absentee. That you're not gonna be in town because you're working or on vacation or you're a
I don't
snowbird
think-
or,
right, That's a reason.
disability.
Yeah.
Whatever the disability may be, or a religious exemption. It doesn't ask anywhere on the application for you to check off, oh, I have a disability. It's just, you're just stating that you do have
So,
a reason.
and you said about 57% return, so how much of a loss, what, I'm sorry, I can't remember.
It was like a $200 loss on the postage. And I'm talking just the postage, not my time. I worked, to process all of those ballots was 45 hours. Sure, part of it was during my regular workday.
Mhm.
A lot of it wasn't.
So it's 200, okay.
So do I have the wrong absentee ballot application? This does
I was saying, I thought
require a
it
reason
does
for special circumstances.
Oh,
Mm.
that's for special circumstances. Yeah. Otherwise, it's not saying, are you disabled, are you working? Special circumstances. If any of these apply to this application, which they don't.
Okay. I guess that, so
It's weird.
it's confusing, and I think that's.
It's
a
very
I
confusing,
think
and
that's a concern that a lot of people have, is they're not willing to maybe face a $10,000 fine or 5 years in prison if they fill this out incorrectly and need an
It's not a
absentee.
fill out incorrectly, it's just fill in the fields, you're stating that you fit one of the 3 criteria. I'm not gonna question, no one's gonna question.
But if someone does, I mean, that's just scary. I mean, if you don't completely understand, that's just scary to face that much money and imprisonment if you're not 100% sure, like, am I disabled? Like, because I don't qualify for Social Security because I make too much money, or am I, I'm not gonna be, I don't have transportation. Does that count as not being in town? Like, there's a lot of different nuanced questions. And I think that a lot of people are scared, and that's why they choose to do the mail-in votes and not the absentee votes, because they don't
I
wanna,
don't think people are scared, I really don't.
you don't think they're,
Brandon?
Just one last comment. I mean, if you really want your vote to count, and I think on the municipal level, you need to do it in person, whether it's early voting or at the polls. I mean, there's so many horror stories through the mail, just even mailing bills and everything, I wouldn't trust it in the first
Your
place.
vote is your most precious thing for your democracy. It's the basis of our
You
country.
don't wanna have a,
Take $1,000, cash, put it in an envelope and mail it to yourself. Do you trust that the post office is gonna deliver it?
well, is it gonna deliver it on time? Is it gonna deliver it unmangled? Is everything going to be filled out correctly? When we get down to the municipal level, every vote counts. So, I think it actually, early, mail-in voting opens up more problems than it solves, so that's
Yes,
just my
I agree.
opinion.
And if there was enough interest, I would be willing to be open on a Saturday or a Sunday for those whose schedules don't fit during the week for early voting.
Danielle?
I appreciate that, but then that would be your time as well, which you were just talking about.
I don't get paid for it, I'm salaried.
Right, so I mean, I
It's
appreciate that.
fine.
My thing is, Brenda's right, every vote did count, and we had 2 incredibly close town elections, and if over half were returned, then I think it should kind of still be given that opportunity. People's schedules are crazy. There's, a lot of different reasons why some people might not make it there, and be like, okay, I can do it this way real quick and easy, and I get it. We do lose things in the mail, 100%, but I'm not afraid of voter fraud in town. I mean, I trust you, so I don't think that's an
Thank you.
issue, but I just think everyone, it's a great way to keep it.
But I've had people say that they sent in their postcards, I never got them.
Right, and I get that. I mean, there's people that say they sent in their excise tax, but they still have to pay the late fee. It happens, I mean,
but that's up to the individual, like, to make that risk and make that choice. I would hate to take away choices from people. They can make their own, we're all adults, we can make our own choices.
Mike?
Hi, sorry. So I'm not exactly sure that we have enough data going either way right now. When we look at the elections for 2020, and just overall pandemic years, we're looking at times where people were at home more, able to pay attention to politics more, So just kind of looking at those factors a little bit, we would see an increase in people doing mail-in votes or just voting in general, whereas now we're coming out of the pandemic. Are we gonna continue seeing an increase, or are we gonna see a decrease now that people are back to working crazy hours? What's their variance in schedule, more traveling? I'm not sure if all the data is there for either direction yet.
But again, working,
There we go,
traveling,
absentee vote.
absentee.
Did we do, mail-in last May?
I don't know. I wasn't working. Sorry. I was
Yeah,
sleeping.
there was mail-in.
No.
Yeah,
Last May?
No.
There was not, there's no statistics online.
Oh, no, there wouldn't have been,
We
because that was
had,
just the
we had-
municipal election.
yeah, we
But
had,
did the state send them out before the
state had-
municipal?
The state wouldn't have done it,
no,
this tariff.
Right, no, I
Right.
know, but they would have sent them out. I don't know when they sent them out for the September and November elections.
That doesn't matter, I'm talking about last May, the town election.
Okay,
No.
I don't know.
So we,
I know I had some absentee vote by mails.
yes. We had 15 absentee and early votes,
and no mail-ins.
and no mail-ins. We didn't have a mail-in option. We had 715 total voters.
So there's no way to know how that affected the last municipal election.
Right.
And look at how many people got to vote back then.
All right, any last questions? Okay.
It's up to you guys.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the town clerk's request to opt out of vote by mail for the municipal election.
So moved.
Second with the opportunity to,
Well, we have to discuss before
Okay.
we vote, yeah.
Yep.
We can't discuss it until it's moved.
okay.
All right. Discussion?
I sort of already discussed a lot of my points, but I think for me personally, not personally, as a representative of the voting public, I've gotten a lot of feedback about this, and I don't doubt that it's a ton of work, and I will agree with that. But I think there's also a need for mail-in voting, and I think we've seen that in some of the numbers. And in addition to that, I don't think we have enough data to support letting go of it for municipal only. I'd like to see that happen before we get rid of it entirely, and to really know more about it. And then I also want to see, going forward, what kinds of things are going to happen at the state level, because Bill Galvin has already asked for more money and support for municipal elections, for reimbursing the mail-in ballots. We're seeing other towns say, no, they're not gonna opt out of it because this is a standard process across all 3 different types of elections. So it would keep things very simple for the voter. But in addition to that, they also see the writing on the wall that this is probably gonna be a state mandate in the future. So for those reasons, I'm just not ready to opt out of it at this point, but I would like to explore support for mail-in ballot processing in the office. That's where I am.
I think it should go away altogether. It was put in for the pandemic for reasons that you weren't allowed to go outside or congregate in public settings. The mask thing and all that made people afraid. I did go to the polls. I've gone since I was able to vote, and I'll still continue to go until I can't. The pandemic is over, and I think we have 3 other options to vote. Like Tara said, absentee, you call her up, or you do the application online under the penalties of perjury. It's all there. It's kind of the same thing without her doing all the extra work and paying more poll workers. I think it should go away, at least for now, and in the future, I would like to see it go away altogether.
Was the option offered online last May? Do you know?
For absentee?
Ashley?
I don't believe it was. I didn't have anything to do with the election at
Right.
all. That was all other people.
It wasn't.
Well, I have to say, I am torn on the issue. I see both sides of it. We don't have, like Brooke said, enough information. You know, John's point, it was put in because of the pandemic, and we do have, you know, other options, including mail-in, by absentee, which is essentially the same thing. And we did have a pretty decent turnout at the May election last year. So I think that, I guess we can vote on it now. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor of,
Do we need to read the letters?
No.
No, okay.
I think it was all hashed out here pretty
Okay.
well. So the motion's been made and seconded to approve the town clerk's request to opt out of the vote by mail, but that does not include opting out of the absentee vote by mail. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Roger Babinski Jr.
How we doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Thank you for letting us come in front of you guys tonight. First, before I start, you guys, we did email you a copy of the presentation. You guys have a copy, or I have extra ones here to read it.
I'll take a copy, please.
I didn't get the memo.
I emailed it to you guys.
I know, I just,
Thank you. I know.
it's a lot to
I
read
have it
out.
in my email, so thank you.
I'm just gonna step out for a second. I have to walk.
So, my name is Roger Babinski. I'm president of Lake Association. I have two other board members with me, Marco Rodriguez and Rick Manzer. What we want to do tonight is just basically do a presentation of the management plan that we have put together for Lake Lashway. And then we'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Okay.
So,
Well, thank you. So thank you again for the opportunity. So if you did not have a chance to look at the report, I'm just going to go summarize some of the pages that are involved in this report. On page 1, we talked about the history of the work that we have done at the lake. As we, back in 2012, we were concerned about the water quality and also the invasive weeds that were just becoming more prevalent in the lake. Non-native plants, and they were becoming a nuisance to the lake. And the water quality was also a concern. So in 2012, we contracted with a company to do a survey of the lake, make sure to understand the scope of the work that needed to be done then at that point in time to ensure that we continue to maintain the lake and water quality and its functionality for recreation, including the town beach that is shared by both East Brookfield and North Brookfield towns. And we discovered there were a number of things that needed to be done to maintain the water quality of the lake. And we paid for that survey. In 2019, we had a survey again done with the purpose of mapping out where these non-native weeds were growing and find ways in which that we could eradicate those plants. Along the way, we also learned about the water quality. The phosphorus level in the lake was very high and needed to be contained as well. So we continue our pursuit to that. Of course, that was 2019. The pandemic came, and we put a pause into things. But in 2021, we were able to contract with a company to come for the first time and do a chemical herbicide treatment at the lake. To take care of these non-native weeds that were very prevalent in a variety of spots around the lake. It was a multiple year treatment. 2021, where it was a first treatment, was very costly. The results of the treatment was very effective, we're very pleased to see that. And last year in 2022, we did a follow-up to the treatment in order to maintain the efficacy of the treatment the year prior. So if you look at the chronology here, all these treatments, the first one in 2001 costed $32,000. And the last year was $6,000. This treatment continues to happen now moving forward. We at the Lake Association had the duty responsibility to find ways in which we could support financially these treatments. In 2001, we recreated a membership fee that will allow us to all the members of the association, the residents of Lake Lashaway, a way in which to support the membership and also the lake treatment. But as you can see through this report, not all residents of Lake Lashaway are part or pay the dues. So therefore, the amount of revenue that we receive on a yearly basis just by the membership is not sufficient for us to continue the treatment. We have become very resourceful in ways in which we can fundraise money for the lake. We started with an annual appeal. We have corporate sponsorships now going on to try to get more funds for the lake, but still not sufficient. A few months ago, we went in front of the East Brookfield Conservation, and we were able to secure $5,000 appropriated to support the lake treatment. And we are here today for the same reason. We cannot do this on our own. We need more support. We need also the support from the town of North Brookfield to support us in maintaining the water quality of the lake. That, of course, it has to do with the quality of the lake, the property value for the residents of the lake, supporting the town beach and the boaters that come on the weekend as well, and maintaining a viable lake for everyone to enjoy. And the Lake Association has been successful in fundraising, but that's also sometimes a missing target. We cannot, support the amount of treatment and all the managements that we have to do for the lake with the conditions that we have for the membership fee that is our revenue. So we would like your support in, also appropriating some dollars from the town on an annual basis to support our efforts. So if you, the pages that follow, the colored maps here is basically, you have the before and after conditions for each one of the treatments. So you look at the biovolume of plant, you can see the colors there, the before and after. The before was 2018, and the next page is 2022 after the treatment. And then you see the plant cover. The coverage of all the plants back in 2018 in page 6. And then you see how reduced it has been in 2022 on page 7. And the same goes for the prevalence of specific, plants, invasive plants that were prevalent at the lake in 2018 and almost non-existent at this time around. Now, even though we have been successful with the treatment, we were very pleased with the results, but it's not something that lasts forever. We have to continue to survey the lake annually to ensure that there's no new growth or growth of a new species. One of the things that is difficult for us to find ways of preventing the proliferation of these plants is that we have a lot of boaters that come from outside. We are a public lake, so they can come with species already attached to their boats and just germinate in our lake. So those are the things that we cannot prevent, but we have to be vigilant about to ensure that the water quality does not in any way impact not only the quality of the lake, but also the value of our properties.
Okay. Did you have anything else that you wanted to touch on?
Oh yes, so we also have, good call. So we also have a native plant called Portamogeton, and this is becoming way prevalent around the lake. And there are locations around the lake, you just go with a kayak, you can't go with any boating because it's so prevalent, it almost surface up on the surface of the water. So that's the treatment that we're gonna target this year. We are in the process of engaging with a company to be able to do the treatment for us. But that's also something that you don't eradicate. That's just going to minimize the impact of the nuisance of that plant. And every year we're going to have to continue to monitor. So basically, once you start the process of treating the lake with the herbicides, is something that probably you're going to do this for a long period of time. It's just going to be the intensity of the treatment that every year, according to the mapping that's done, we'll be able to determine the scope of that. And through that, we understand what's going to be the scope of the cost for the treatments for annually. So again, we're here to ask you for your support and also ask you for potentially appropriating dollars for the Lake Lashway to continue the management plan.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we support you. We can't really commit to money right now. We have to obviously discuss it and look at what we have for money and all that stuff, and it's, you know, probably a process.
Sure.
You know, so what?
Just for a baseline, if you don't mind, I went to, I'm on the finance committee in East Brookfield.
Okay.
So I made a request to the Board of Selectmen. We put it on warrant, the town voted. So that's the process that we went through down there. Which
Well,
is
that's probably
no
gonna be,
surprise.
it's probably gonna be similar here.
Yeah, probably.
Because it'll have to be appropriated at town meeting ultimately.
Yeah, yeah.
What is it, how much are you looking for?
We got $5,000 from East Brookfield. So I think
What's it cost you on a yearly basis to?
well, it's variable.
It's gonna vary depending on what we have to do, you know, what we have to do for the treatments. It's never the same. It's like, you know, like in here, where it's, you know, the first year, it was, you know, the residents around the lake forked over $33,000 of our own money to treat. The next year, you know, last year, it was only about 6,000. So it's gonna vary depending on the issues that, when we do our surveys each year, on what's gonna have to be done. And that's where we rely on the treatment company to come out, they do surveys, and which we pay for, and then they come back with a recommendation, and then we basically, you know, put it to a vote on our association if we're willing to do it.
So regarding I have two questions regarding the chemicals.
Yep.
How far downstream do they make it?
From what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you're kind of the lead guy, the chemical.
That didn't sound good.
Not that kind of way. In the water and on the ground.
Yeah, so.
When the chemicals are they dissipate pretty quickly in the water. There's no residual effect of the chemicals. What we have done is we have put any chemical that is treated in Lake Lashway, it's posted on our website, so people can go and they can read up about it. You know, we put a lot of reliability in the treatment companies because that's what they do.
Just so you understand our process, we had to get a notice of intent approved, then we had to get orders of conditions approved, and every year that we go through the process of treating weeds, we need to go to the DEP, provide them with a list of chemicals. Tomorrow I'm going to request a check to do the permitting process with DEP to go forward with the vendor we've chosen.
Okay, I have a question. You said that a lot of people aren't paying the $50 dues or whatever. Is there any way to get them to, or it's a voluntary, it's
completely voluntary. I wish we could, because it would make our life a lot easier.
Are there any way in the tax base down there that something could be added in for just the lake, or, I don't know if there is. And another one is, do you have a sign at the, and I know signs are great, everybody reads them. But, where you're, at the boat launch, is there a sign at all down there that says, please clean your boat off before
There
you
is
bring
a
it in? I don't know.
The existing sign that's there that has, that's a map of the lake.
Yeah.
That gives basically anybody that comes onto the lake all the information they need.
Right.
Like where the shallow spots are, where the
Yeah.
wake zones are. There is a small sign on that. What we went in front of conservation, about a month ago now? Requesting the permission to put up
A second.
an identical sign on the other side of the boat ramp.
Flashing lights.
So, but it's more for, to post informational things for people coming on the lake.
Yeah.
Because the amount of traffic since COVID started, the amount of traffic we have coming on the lake is from outside of the lake.
Right.
A lot of people, they're not aware of the basic rules and regulations, or kind of like what Marco touched on about people coming in and not having their vessels cleaned.
Well, you can't even get on the Quabbin unless you have it, your motor tagged and sealed.
Exactly.
I know you can't do that down there because you'd have to man it and everything, but even just a good sized
Right.
sign.
I took the boat up to Lake George a couple of years ago, and it was like the weed police were there.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You know, that boat had to be pristine. They checked that boat, or my boat.
Well, we just heard you were the weed guy, so maybe.
But we're hoping with the
Maybe I forgot.
We're hoping with the new sign that we put up, and we'll have more things posted that, you know, people will actually stop and kind of
Well, that's it.
take the time to look. I mean, you know, we have two different designs we're looking at right now, but, you know, we're looking into maybe having pamphlets that people can take, you know, will they take them? Who knows?
It's worth a shot.
But it's worth a shot. If it doesn't work, you know, we can change it, so.
Do you have questions? No. Brandon?
I just want to say, on the Conservation Commission, and the associates have been great to work with. They come, they're very transparent, they come in, all their paperwork's filled out from the state, everything's, all their i's are dotted, the t's are crossed. They come in even when they don't have to, and keep us updated. The treatments are kind of similar to what Brooks Pond's been doing, just in case anybody wants to know, for the last, I don't know, 30 years or so. But I guess I should have asked this of you when you're at a meeting. Have you looked into any grants? Is there any grants available for this at all?
We have looked into grants, but for BMPs as opposed to water and weed treatment. We've talked, as we've come to you, we've gone to the Conservation Commission in East Brookfield. We've gone directly to the DEP. So we've met with everybody. They don't provide grants for weed treatment.
Yeah, the state doesn't allow.
All right, just
But it's a good question. I mean, no argument. I mean,
Can I,
somebody,
mind if I ask a question?
no, not at all.
Are you guys like part of, is it the same thing as like the East Brookfield Town Beach Committee, and does this help the beach from shutting down?
Sure it does. We didn't have an algae bloom last year that I'm aware of. So some of the chemicals that are going into the lake are supporting not having an algae bloom. You can well imagine that, you know, Roger and Marco and I are like closely tied to the beach committee. I mean, we're all playing the
Not
same.
the same thing, but close.
We're all,
Okay.
you know,
They're
and
their
they're,
own entity, but we
Okay.
work side by side with them because they're on the lake. So, and even with the, you know, the treatments that we do, which, you know, are more focused toward, you know, invasive weeds or nuisance weeds. You know, like an algae bloom, we've been lucky that we didn't have one last year.
Right.
But a lot of times the algae blooms have a lot to do with the weather too. If we don't get a lot of rain and it's very dry and there's not a lot of movement in the water current-wise, sometimes the water becomes very stagnant, and that
Right.
can start causing a lot of the blooms to flourish. So, and that's why, if I'm correct, the town does, you know, constantly check, do tests at the town beach for any bacteria counts on, you know, during the summer. obviously because when the beach is open, so. One thing that, you know, we'd like to see happen, and I know, of course, this costs more money, is to have multiple areas of the lake tested, not just the beach, like maybe over the boat area and at the beach, and you know, and then of course going to East Brookfield to see if there's other areas, you know, because in the perfect world, I think if we were able to get a test done on the north part of the lake, the middle of the lake, and toward the south end of the lake, toward Route 9, that would give us a good idea of, you know, really how the lake's doing when it comes to like the algae blooms.
So, can we put this on the next agenda?
But, you know, what comes from up there winds up down there, right?
It seems like you're trying to control weeds and not controlling phosphorus inputs. You're kind of fighting with one side behind your back.
Hey, no argument.
Right, now, if you, the survey that we did in 2018 that ESS did, which is, the company is now TRC, if you go, which is on our website, you can go on and you can,
Look at the phosphorus.
you can look at, if you look at the levels of phosphorus, the levels of phosphorus actually, I mean, they weren't as high as we all thought they were. The numbers were actually surprisingly low. And the issue, like Rick said, a lot of the people on the lake are, you know, we've stressed the importance of, if you're gonna fertilize your lawns, to do organic fertilizers and not, you know, do the traditional ones and the weed, you know, the chemicals. As I said, like Rick said too, a lot of the issues that we have in Lake Lashaway is caused from upstream, which we have absolutely no control over. We actually, back in 19, we tried to, we applied for a 604B grant, which would help us with basically a management plan, you know, that included kind of the upstream area. But the problem, we didn't get the grant. Right, but the DEP was willing, we sat down with the DEP and talked to them about that, and they're the ones that basically came up and told us, you know, you need to focus on what you guys can control. And they said, you know, concentrate on Lake Lashaway. Upstream is a very difficult process to tackle, which would really be kind of out of our hands, unfortunately. But we do, you know, we do try to educate as much, the best we can, the residents. It is talked about when we have our member meetings and things like that, so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you
very much for your
We'll talk
time.
about this again and we'll get back to you.
All right, thank you.
Michael Hinckley, town cleanup.
May I just say one more thing?
Sure.
The Lake Association is planning a town cleanup. East Brookfield is planning a town cleanup. For the lake area in particular, last year and the year before, we did a cleanup. The East Brookfield dump accepted our stuff. We just left it out on the street, and Mark Carpentier, who you may know on the Finance Committee, came around and picked it all up. So that's a plan. We're doing it.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you guys.
These guys walk behind you first.
Sure.
All right. Also, I'm gonna stand just so that
Take care. Thanks.
this guy with beard's on the front man. All right. Yeah. So I'm Michael Hinckley. For transparency purposes, I am the environment, health, and safety engineer for Vibram. So I'm kind of coming to speak on a little bit of behalf of Vibram. So Earth Day. In the past, what Vibram has done is, you know, taken out a small group of people and then gone up 67, picked up trash, then disposed of it in our dumpsters and so on. I participated in that last year, but now that I am in a different position, being in the EHS role, I'm trying to get Vibram to be a little bit more involved in the town. So the reason why I'm here is just kind of ask, you know, if there's certain areas in town that you see that could, you know, need manpower. You know, we have the rail trail, as you have worked on. We have the town's forest, which myself and town forest, maybe previous town forest members, have all worked in. So I'm just trying to get an idea of maybe what are some other areas that we could, you know, look at, consider, and see, you know, can we get enough people to kind of push towards giving back to the town?
You talking trash cleanup or brush and debris or?
Yeah.
We have 75 miles of road, have at it.
I mean,
There's
I
nits
just
everywhere, trash. We have an Earth Day. We have an Earth Day cleanup, and the way it's been run is you go on, you clean up in your groups. They meet at the highway department and bring all the stuff here, and the highway takes it down to the transfer station. So thank you and Vibram for putting it in your dumpsters, and you can continue to do that. But we do have to, maybe you can coordinate with I don't know who's running
It's
the Earth
Sue
Day.
Lewandowski.
Is Sue Lewandowski still doing it?
But
She's,
wasn't it through NB Helps?
it was through NB Helps, so,
Okay.
yeah, and then she's not a member of that
She's
anymore,
not,
so.
no, so I don't know.
NB Helps would be the one to go to. Ashley can give you.
Alright, I actually want to email exchange with them right now. I'm just trying to see if there's a major coordinating effort with the town, and maybe seeing if there's anything specifically that you guys would want.
Crooks
With the
Road.
high schoolers, get them out, make them go outside.
Yeah, I would like to get a lot more business and town partnership, just even beyond Vibram, being on town forest, trying to work with any of the other local entities. So I can continue being on my email exchange with the decorating committee, North Brookfield Helps.
So how many people do you have that usually do this with you?
Last year was a very small group, I would say, somewhere between 20 and 30 people.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. Oh, you guys.
Right.
So if you wanted to, like we do the one on Earth Day,
Yeah.
but if there was another day that was convenient for you and your group, if you wanted to organize something for, say, I don't know, 3 or 4 months after Earth Day, or even 2 months after Earth Day, and let us know about it, we could do another town-wide cleanup and probably have highway available to collect everything and bring it to the landfill instead of using your dumpsters.
Yeah.
Does the Little League and the soccer, do they still do the field cleanup days and things like that?
I don't know.
Because they used to organize that, and that, they always needed help too.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we can think about this more and keep a dialogue going.
Okay. So where my next steps are from here, I'll continue looking at some of the different properties around town that I do want to put focus on, town forest, rail trail if possible, you know, if there's any trees down or anything like that, brush cleanup, trash pickup. And then I'm trying to work with Vibram right now as well as setting up an event in the town forest, and because we have a disc golf park, it kind of makes sense for an outdoor brand to participate in an outdoor event. So I'm still kind of in communication with Vibram on that. So I'll just keep moving forward with what I'm doing.
Do you have a card?
I can get you a card.
That'd be great.
All right. I'm in town hall a lot, so I'll drop it off.
He's
Perfect.
always
Thank
there.
Thank you.
And thank Vibram too.
All right, public comment period.
Consumer have significantly less buying power. I cannot get the lower rates that can be negotiated through buying aggregates and town programs. The other major flaw in this open market is that there are plenty of companies with a great sales pitch, but that have variable rates and other predatory business practices for which the consumer has no protections. I have learned that the towns are one body that can negotiate a lower electricity rate for its community members through buying aggregates. A simple online search shows many area towns that participate in this, offering its residents substantially more affordable electricity. I began writing to the town in mid-January regarding the town's electricity rate, and I was told at that time that the town had submitted a plan to the state for approval in 2019, but had not heard back. I believe 4 years is long enough to wait. When I heard from the town that the state had not followed up on the town's proposal, I contacted Senator Goby's office. Senator Goby herself responded to my inquiry and provided the names of the people to contact at the Department of Public Utilities at the state level. I have yet to hear from a North Brookfield Town Board member on this, which prompted my coming to speak at this meeting today. I appreciate the follow-up that Ms. Ashley Berry has provided. She has been most fastidious and professional in her communications. However, she is not the town manager, town administrator, or town elected official. I am formally asking the town elected officials, within their authority and as part of their responsibility to provide for the citizens of this town, to follow up on the electricity proposal and secure financially responsible electric rates for all residents. I appreciate your time and follow through on this manner. And I do have some things that I printed that you can use as reference, including what I said today. I didn't make multiple copies though, because I have to pay my electric bill. So I have some for you, sir.
Thank you. So we have been in touch with our legislators about it.
Okay.
We're waiting to hear back from, apparently it's the Department of Public Utilities that has this. And this has gone all the way up to our federal senators. They're looking into it as well. So it's not something that we haven't been looking into. We're just waiting to hear back. And I don't know what the holdup is. So you will be the first to know.
Thank you, sir.
As we find things
We all
out.
appreciate you.
Honestly, I'm glad I don't have electric heat. I feel like this is
So
difficult,
we
but-
have been, there has been, you know,
Okay,
requests for these issues going out, so.
okay. I appreciate hearing that, and I look forward to 2019 to 2023 is unconscionable. And a 30% raise is also not acceptable. In what I looked at and what I found, the electricity rates are roughly about 11 cents per kilowatt. And National Grid is 34 cents. That's a huge difference. That's not half, that's over 3 times as much money. That's a lot for our residents.
I did just see online that they say they're coming down in the spring.
And I guess like, yeah, but
Spring of
you know
when?
what? Let's never have this happen to residents again, because let's always be part of a program where we can get our electricity at a more reasonable rate.
John, when you say you haven't heard from a town official, one of us, when you hear from Ashley, it's coming from us, because we've all atoned to everything that's gone on. I was one in 2019 that signed to get the state to give us a cheaper rate, and it's sat there. Me and Jason and Dale we were on that, our names are all on that, so when you hear from Ashley, it's actually coming from all of us. We don't always get together and talk about it, but we're all aware of, we saw your stuff come in, I read it.
Thank you, sir. It is good to know that, because I don't know that, and Ashley has been fantastic about communicating with me, and I appreciate it, and has sent me some resources and information. But I guess, like, I don't want to be the only one banging the drum, nor do I have the authority to, so it's very important to me to know that people that do have the authority and ability are also making noise and contacting people and working to get this done. Especially because there are residents that are currently able to benefit from these programs right now in our state, so.
Call in Goldie and them down, we've tried, you know.
I know, and she also reassured me that at the state level, they're also trying to look at legislation. I guess that's great, but.
We're on this side of 495, and to get something out here in my, I'm not a solar guy, but I'm having solar put on my house, gonna drop my bill 2/3. And I'm not a solar approved guy, but I'm doing it anyway. I can't afford the increase. So,
Anyone else? Danielle?
I have a question. So, thank you, Tara, for putting up that list of like who's running for what on social media.
No problem.
So looking
We are
at
gonna
that-
announce that, by the way.
Huh?
We are gonna read that off, by the way.
Oh, okay, but, my question is, so when you're on the select board and on other committees, how does that work if you oversee, like, for example, the Board of Health? If there's an issue presented to you and you're on both boards, can you explain that? Do you have to recuse yourself, or?
Only if it has to do with like your personal money. Like you can be elected to any position you want, or as many elected positions as you want. You can't appoint yourself to a position,
Okay.
okay? So, we can't be on the finance committee.
Okay.
We can't be on, say, the zoning board, conservation, anything that has an appointed committee. But if people feel so inclined to elect somebody to a position, they can elect people to as many positions as that person is crazy enough to be on.
Okay, all right.
I saw that.
What are you trying to say?
That was not subtle whatsoever.
It wasn't meant to be subtle. All right.
So, obviously, I'm just a little disappointed that I'm not here to give you my proposal today, but, for the small town pride. But I did want to make sure that you guys were aware that we did agree to change the date. And we also just wanted to say that we will be starting our planning committee meetings, this coming Monday, despite the fact that, we'll have the discussion next day. So, because no matter what, we need to start planning, so I just wanted to let everybody know that if they are interested in being on the small town pride planning committee, they can contact the Rural Justice Network, and we'd love to have anybody who's interested help starting us plan for this upcoming year Small Town Pride.
Thank you. Anybody else? Public comment?
Well, as regards, a small town pride, event, I went to Westbrook, your small town proud event last year at the West Brookfield Common, and it was all drag queens, suggestively dressed, twerking in front of children, and it went on for hours. And even, I was at a standout protesting this event.
Okay.
So I had a good viewing of it. So my thing is, if this small town pride event is going to have those gentlemen behaving like that in front of children, that you selectmen not approve it. I mean, you have to find out if it's going to be a drag queen event. It was 100% drag queen event. I mean, that's the whole thing.
It was, respectfully, it was not, but we'll discuss it next week. But I would like to add that if you are uncomfortable with it, that you don't come next time, because there's
No, it's not me, it's the children I'm worried
Okay,
about.
so
I don't think that,
This is a public comment period, not a debate session. Okay, so we appreciate what both of you bring to the table. We appreciate your comments, and it's a public comment period, we'll leave it at that. Okay,
yeah.
so, anyone else? All right. Announcements. I think the only announcement I have is the final list of who is gonna be on the ballot. Is that correct, Ashley?
Yes,
That's the only one?
correct.
All right. I'm sure John has plenty afterwards. All right.
You heard 2 minutes.
All right. So, the annual town election is Monday, May 1st, 2023. The annual town meeting is May 5th, 2023. Last day to submit nomination papers to the registrars is gone by. Last day to withdraw is March 29th, Wednesday, by 5 p.m. Last day to register to vote for the annual town election or annual town meeting is Thursday, April 20th, from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. The polling place is the Senior Center, 29 4th Street. That's as usual. Polling hours are 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Offices and incumbents and or candidates are as follows. Selectmen for 3 years, Jason Petritis, papers returned. School committee for 3 years. There are 2. Timothy Canada, papers returned. Daniel Riendo, papers returned. School committee for 2 years, Tanya Matthews, papers returned. School committee for 1 year, John Magario, papers returned. Water commissioners for 3 years, Patrick Gustafson. I'm just gonna read the names, I'm not gonna say papers returned, it's a given. Assessor for 3 years, Priscilla Johnson. Board of Health for 3 years, Ethan Malad and John Tripp. Cemetery commissioner for 3 years, Kirk Burnham. Library trustee for 3 years, Betty Wolfing, Carol Kelly. Planning board for 5 years, John Tripp. Playground committee for 3 years, 1 for 2 years, 1 for 1 year. No one has taken those out. Southern Worcester County Regional Vocational School Committee for 3 years, Donald Gillette. Housing Authority for 5 years, Mary Waitina and Carol Ryback. Constable for 3 years, Michael Hinckley. And that is that. So, all right. All right, so, do you have anything?
No.
Do you want 2 minutes?
No, thank you.
John, short and sweet. We're looking for donations for the little park in the center of town here. Spring is coming. We're gonna need to do flowers and mulch over there. There's also a couple of unpaid bills for that, so any money that you have to donate, you can donate it for the town of North Brookfield, care of the Board of Selectmen, and put Little Park in the memo. Also, at some point, if somebody wants to do some shoveling over there, I know Brooke's husband did a pass. I can't do it right now because I'm an invalid for a little bit longer. But shoveling can be done over there. A lot of Vibram people use the park. A lot of people are buying their goodies over at the gas station and they want to use the park to sit now that the weather's getting better. And also, we're looking for donations for the 4th of July. We have lists of the last year's vendors that we're gonna be contacting to get that going again. That's it. Thank you.
And before we close, I'd like to thank Highway for doing a good job in the last storm. I got a bunch of texts and emails regarding that, saying that, you know, people were thankful that they did a good job. I want to thank the police and fire for for helping out and assisting with people through the storm. There were several incidents that they helped with. And emergency management did a great job keeping people informed about the power outages, and were available to help in the event they needed to be, the people needed to be brought to be warmed up. So, that being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, and have a good night.
Thank you. I won't get it.